Hi, welcome to the Chad Bozarth Show. Thanks for listening. Michael, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and an honor. This is very, very cool.
Oh, this is fantastic. Well, I first discovered you years ago. I was asked to teach an acting class at Christ for the Nations here in Dallas, and I was thinking through what I wanted to do with that, and so I was looking for a required textbook. And I had taken acting classes before, and I was familiar with like Meisner and different things, but I couldn't really think of anything Christian. And
Right.
my mom is a teacher, and she's like, "Well, you really should find a Christian book." I'm like, I don't think
So
such a
much.
thing, I don't think such a thing exists. And if it does, I didn't have high hopes, if I'm being honest. And then I
Right.
found your book, and I read it, and I thought it was fantastic. And so I started using it as my required text. So all of that background to say, what prompted you to write it? You've been an actor for a long time, you've been a professor, and you wrote this book, Acting in Faith, A Christian's Guide to the Acting World. Where did that come from?
Can I ask a quick question? How long ago was that? Do you
You know
remember?
what? Yeah, it was 2017.
Okay. I think the book came out in 2016. Like the timing of that, like late 2016. I think the timing of that was really, really fascinating to me. Um, it's a decent question, Chad. What made me write this book? A tiny bit of background for me is I had been an actor for a long time. I started in the last century, and and things were going great. I went to graduate school. I went to New York. I went to Los Angeles. While I was in LA, I was in a play, and I got very sick during the play. The very beginning of the show, I actually collapsed on stage and had to be taken off. Um, And the whole day, like, I'm just nervous. I knew that the LA Times were coming that night, and it was a big deal for this particular small company. And um, I thought I was nervous because I do get very nervous before I perform still to this day. Um, but it just didn't go away. And I did my first thing in the show. I turned around and looked at my scene partner, and she saw my face just like change color. And then I went down. My wife got a phone call. And I was sick, sick, sick. Like this is a podcast, so I don't want to get too graphic about it. But um, and then
Wow.
I was sick for a little over a year. And no one knew what I had. I was misdiagnosed several times. Um, but I had this weird trauma response to being on stage, and I thought that was over. That was 2005.
Wow.
And I have two small kids at the time. Well, one small kid at the time, and then another small kid came during the sickness time, and I had to get a real job. So I joined the real job world in the insurance branch of things, and fast forward to 2010, 2009, and I'm riding my bicycle to work, and I was yelling at God.
Hmm.
I was like, "What do you want from me? This is the worst. I'm bad at insurance. I don't feel like I belong here." And um, I don't claim to have heard the audible voice of God in my own spiritual life. I know some people do. Um, but I got this really strong sense that he had given me all of these ideas, and I was doing nothing with them. Um, and that he was still taking care of me and my family, but he was going to keep me in this desert until I really started listening to him.
Wow.
And the impulse I got was, I want you to write, and I don't want you to care about producing or or the final products of anything that you're writing. Just write, because that's how you and me used to talk, and we're not doing that anymore.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. So at work that day, I threw open my laptop and started a Word document. And I started writing the book you're talking about. I started because I didn't know what to write about. I'd done a couple. like independent television show, writing things in a play. Um, at that point, a couple plays at that point, and I was like, what do I write about? And so I started writing about what I thought about what I used to do and who I thought I was, and it was just journaling for a while. And it was pretty constant. And the beautiful thing about it was that ever since that point, I've not really had writer's block. Um, unless I'm commissioned to do something. That's when things
Mm.
get all gummy. Like if someone has asked me to do something, then I get a little gummy. But when I'm following what God wants me to write, when He wants me to write it, it just comes out. Um, and by 2016, my wife and I were looking at all the stuff that I had written. This is 2015, actually. And we saw that there was a book in there
Wow.
and started editing it. And I was like, oh man, I have all these references. Now I have to go and cite my references and stuff. Um, but I did, and I took it around to a bunch of places, and I got some decent feedback about it. But it was all like, "This is a Christian acting book," and I think 9 people are going to be interested in this. So, good job writing. Come back when you have something that's a little more broad. So I published it myself. And my dad helped me out with some money to get it designed and put together. And it was really kind of neat, full circle to bring him into that process. He's always been supportive, but just theater was not never his thing. He was a big athlete guy, and my whole family was actually. So it was just lovely to have him go, I believe in you, and I want to do this for you. And then a little bit later, Kendall Hunt picked it up and became mainstream in the classes at the university. And it's been a real blessing to me to be able to have taught this discipline in the framework of a Christian worldview. There's a lot of other stories behind that beginning of getting sick story, but that's the book story. That's how that came around.
No, that's so good, and I appreciate you um going for it, you know? I so identify with that. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, because I think I don't know if you're like this, but I can just overthink everything and I want things to be perfect.
Yep.
And then it's like, no, it will never be perfect. Let me just start. And then
Yeah.
let's just see what happens and I'll correct on the way. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm drawn to acting personally is because it's like once you do it, you can't overthink it. You're just in the moment and
Right.
whatever happens, happens, and you just have to live with it. And there's something like free about that. Like yeah, I love it, you know?
If you've ever had a perfect rehearsal, let me know because
Yeah.
that's just something I don't think exists out there because it's a place where we go and we make mistakes on purpose and we try working it out. And yeah, I think that we do share that in common, that idea of like, oh, I just wanted to be right, just wanted to
Yeah.
be right. And then it's antithetical to what we actually do.
Yeah. That Man, there's so, oh man, there's so many directions you can go in acting because I remember, beginning to act and you get a breakdown or something and you want it to be perfect, but then you realize casting directors, they don't always know what they want until they see it anyway. So you just have to just be yourself and it's just this whole, I don't know, it's addicting, you know?
The only thing you're really good at, I think, is being yourself.
Yeah.
You can try and be what you think that they want, and then you get in this weird web of trying to guess about something. But if you go in there going, "This is me, and this is how I think this should go," and do that performance for them of your version of this. If you want to see more, you have to pay me. Um, I think that's the
That's
way
good.
to go. You can leave every audition feeling good about yourself at that point. Like
Yeah.
that's the show I wanted to do. And
Yeah.
thank God that I got in, or thank God that I didn't, because if they didn't want to do that version of the show, then maybe it was going to be a miserable process for us.
That's good. Well, let me ask you about that because growing up around athletics and that type of thing, before I got into acting, I thought that the acting world was like this impermeable bubble, and like I had no idea how to get into it, and it just seemed like this other thing. And then you realize, oh, actors are actually just normal people. Also, how did you break into that bubble? How did you get into that world, given your background growing up around athletics and that type of thing?
I'm the youngest of six kids, so
Wow.
grabbing attention was sort of necessary. Um, and they were all bigger and stronger than me all the time. And so, the only, I'm not going to use this word right. The only weapons I had were my mouth, and my brain. And so, I just tried to be the one that made everybody laugh and, be that source of attention. Um, and then I started with the piano.
Mm,
My parents were determined that one of us was going to play, and it just went bang, 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 bang until it landed on me. And I got into this thing where I really loved doing stuff for people, making something and showing people stuff. Um, and I was going to be a music pastor for since the very beginning. That's what they wanted me to do. And um, I went to college on a full ride scholarship to do that, which was really great because I did not have a very good grade point average. Um, and I was doing college and high school at the same time, kind of a dual enrollment thing. I was part of this choir and I was a sound person. Um, and it just became really apparent that I couldn't lead worship. I was so worried. I had that same thing you were talking about earlier. I was so worried about the notes being perfect and my voice being
mm,
perfect and all these things. It was just this terrible thing. And the oddest thing about my whole story is that I found a way to worship while acting where I couldn't find it while leading worship behind a piano.
mm.
Um, because I was able to, I think, let go more and let it be less perfect and put myself in God's hands on stage. Whereas I felt the responsibility of leading a group of people in a worship song on the other side. So um, it was a long process. I dropped out of that school. I didn't know where I was going to go. Um, and I was hanging around my old high school in the middle of the summer just because it was the only place I felt like I knew where and who I was. And my theater teacher just happened to be there that day when we got in a conversation, and she called up the college I was gonna go to, and I didn't know it, but she did, and set me up there. And I had to be a theater major to get a theater scholarship, but I could also get music scholarships for playing piano or trumpet or singing and stuff. And so I cobbled together a college fund through that. And I really felt like God placed me in that theater program. Um, and after that, we went to graduate school over at the University of San Diego, and it's a incredible program. They take seven people every year, and it was
Wow.
one of the top five in the country, especially as far as Shakespeare goes. And it was just a miracle time. And grad school really set me up professionally because at the end of that 2.5 years, it was just kind of understood that you would have your equity card and an agent because they do these showcases in New York and Los Angeles, and they had a kind of 100% placement rate after that.
Wow.
And so I hit the ground running. And I really feel like every job I've had, God has placed me in because I was not qualified for it.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah.
How was your experience once you kind of jumped into those deep waters? Was it what you expected or um I always find it so interesting to be a Christian actor myself because like I'm not ashamed of that at all, but I also like if I'm in a class or a certain context, I'm not looking to, preach to anybody necessarily. I'm looking to do the best job that I can in that context, right?
Yeah, which
And
I
so it
also
can get
think
weird,
is,
right?
yeah, I think you're doing exactly what God has called you to do, right? Do
Right.
excellent work and work as though you're working for God, not for men. And people will see your good works and glorify God, I think. Because I think if you did go in to preach, you would have a very different experience. Um,
Exactly.
I think because I'm not going to say definitively God might call someone to go and do that. But my experience, I think the original question was it what I expected? I think it was. I think both my undergraduate experiences and my community theater experiences and my graduate and professional level experiences um, really nicely molded it into myself. You know what I didn't, what I expected that didn't happen was that my parents were really convinced that the entertainment world was evil.
Mm.
And their version of evil meant hedonistic, indulgent, and just over the top drugs, sex, all the whole thing. And I felt not, I was surprised that it was not the case. These were a lot like professional athletes who were really keeping their bodies, for the most part, keeping their bodies and their lives as clean as possible so that they could do their job for a long time. I think I was really fortunate to have that experience. I felt like on the community theater level, it was much more on that self-indulgent place than on the professional level. So I was surprised at that. I was also surprised to find, because they also said it was evil, that no one's a Christian out there, which is, we're, I think, a minority for sure. Um, but the spiritual world of the entertainment industry is rich. I think a lot of us performers and creators know that there's something else out there. And the other surprising thing to me was it was almost like an Acts 17 situation where like you'd hear phrases like the universe is going to take care of me, or I just believe karma's got this thing. And they all have these names for something bigger, something inspiring, something that gave you purpose. It just could not and would not, in a lot of cases, put the word God in front of it, or especially Jesus. I think God got a lot more play than Jesus ever did in their conversations. And it really made talking about my own spiritual life and my relationship with Christ easier. Um,
Mm.
I've never felt oppressed for being a Christian in any of the settings I've been in. I've never felt oppressed for being kind of weird as far as I'm a socially weird person, in that a lot of people will go out after the shows and do stuff. And I was married super young, like right as soon as we graduated from undergrad. I was married to the best person in the world, and so I was excited to go home and be with her. And so I was never one of those like let's go party people. So I was kind of kept safe like that, but I was never oppressed or persecuted for it. But just kind of seen as like, oh, that's weird.
Mm.
Um, yeah. And I don't know, have you had this experience like the spiritual conversations in a production usually happen around week 3 or 4. Um, we're getting into tech week and we all know each other now. I often get the Michael, you're a Christian, right? That sort of question. And then things happen around that time after you've earned trust after a while.
Well, I think your experience is probably even different than mine because everything I've done has been in the Dallas, Texas area. So there's so much, not that everybody's a Christian by any means, but like, if my agent sends me something and I turn it down because of whatever content reasons, she's not going to think I'm strange for doing that. And so, I've always kind of like you, I've always had such a good experience of like camaraderie amongst people and, um, different different things, but most everybody is won't look at you weird around here if you're a Christian, I would say. They might have preconceived notions of what exactly that means,
They'll have a
right?
very good idea of what you probably think about them at any given moment.
Right. But yeah, it's been interesting. I
My
love it.
agent
That's
only got
I
mad at me one time for that.
do what now?
Well, I was just thinking about what your agent conversation went to. Um, my agent got mad at me one time for having boundaries, and it was my fault.
Hmm.
Um, she sent me this new script. It was a David Ives thing, and it was going to happen at the New Works Festival down in Indiana, I think. And it was great. It was really language heavy, though.
Hmm.
Um, but it was a big deal. And David Ives, I was a really big fan of David Ives. Still am. And man, wow. So I auditioned for it, and then I got a call back, and I got a second call back. But in my heart, I was like, I don't know if I could do this. And I talked about it with Karen and my wife, Karen, and she's like, I don't think you should do it if you don't feel like you should do it. Um, oh, it's so good. And it came down to it, and I called my agent. I said, you know what? I can't accept the role. They had offered the role, and I said I couldn't accept it because of this language thing. And she was very upset, and rightly so. She goes, why now? Um, and it was all like I was auditioning out of fear and greed and all that stuff. And had I listened to those things before, really just prayed about it. Like, I'm not saying God doesn't want me to do stuff that has harsh language in it. Um, I did not pray ahead of time. And that was one of the big chapters in the book was like, when do you invite God into your career? When you need him?
Yeah.
In crisis mode or all the time? And I think the answer really should be all the time.
Well, and that's a real struggle. I mean, being a Christian actor, because, we understand that we're not always going to play Christian characters, right? And to be faithful to a character is to be, whatever the situation demands. And
Yes.
so for me personally, it's difficult because sometimes I'm determining, am I promoting something by being a part of this, or am I being true to the story by being part of this? And it's
Right.
not, it's not always clear. And so uh, I mean, I guess everybody just has to make their own, because I know some people have, a hard line of whatever. It's very black and white. And then in some ways, I think it's easy to be black and white when you are in control of everything and you're writing and doing everything. But I don't know. It's a real struggle. A lot of times I'll get a script and I'll think through it and I'll run it past my wife or past my mom. And what do you think about this? And I involve other people because I don't want to ever hurt my testimony, but I don't want to overthink it and pass something. It's a struggle. I mean, bottom line, it's a struggle, right?
It's a total struggle, and I think it's a great struggle to have because it will drive you to the cross every single time if your heart is with God. I think you just take that struggle to God and be like, do you want me to do this show? I think in the book I actually make an example like you should pray as equally hard about should you audition for Oklahoma than if you do this new work that has a lot of weird stuff in it.
Hmm.
Um, because you never know where God is sending you. God can send you into Nineveh and he can send you into the most holy place. Um, he just will put you where he needs to expand the kingdom and for his glory. So there will be times where I have to explain to the casting director or my agent or something like that, like I can't do this because of God reasons, and they won't really understand. But there will also be times where I have to go to my family and the people in my Christian circles. I'm like, I'm going to go do this show because God wants me to, and they won't understand for various reasons. And I think God wants me to be in this place. Um, and so both sides are confused by what's going on. But if you have that answer of, I've really prayed about this and I feel like this is where I'm supposed to go. Um, if you're answerable just to God, I think it's better. That boundaries chapter in the book was a kind of a revelation to me, knowing that, oh, the reason I don't do X, Y, or Z isn't always biblical. Sometimes it's my family, those are reasons. And sometimes it's my personal safety for those reasons. Sometimes it's the culture that I'm in for those reasons, but sometimes it's biblical. And sometimes they're both, or all three, or all four. And if there was any chapter I was going to rewrite, I think that would be that particular chapter because I don't think personal safety comes up in that chapter, but it really should. I'm not going to jump out of an airplane.
Yeah.
I don't have a biblical reason for not doing so. But my wife and I have had arguments about it, and because we want to go on the Amazing Race, I'm like, we're going to
Yeah.
lose. There are airplanes involved. She's like, for $1 million,
I
for
sent
not
an
for $1 million.
audition tape for that years ago with somebody. Uh,
I wouldn't
no,
do it. It's personal safety. Um, But all those other boundaries, my family boundaries, my cultural boundaries, my personal safety boundaries, I think I would sell out for if God asked me to. I would put that on the altar there and be like, I'm doing this thing that I never thought I would do. And it's simple things like, there's nudity stuff and there's language stuff and there's content that are the big red flag things. Um, I've always been super grateful that no one would ever want to see me naked. So I don't think anyone's ever going to ask me to do so. But when you start getting into that mindset of God would never ask me to dot dot dot, I think it gets really dangerous. I never had to kiss anybody on stage. I was always the clown. And then we moved to Arizona, and my type here in the valley changed because of the people who were in charge of casting things. And now Karen and I, how long? That's 15 years ago. So that's 15 years into our relationship, are now having to have these conversations for the first time.
Yeah.
And I wonder if God was being really, really, really kind and letting us have 15 years together first before I had to talk about that stuff. So we felt in a much safer place than we'd ever felt. Um, so yeah, yeah, I don't know if I just went on a weird tangent. Sorry about that.
No, it's true. And I think to be a Christian actor, like you said, is to often be misunderstood by one group or another. Because I always used to I feel like I've been in it long enough now where I feel like people maybe understand me more, but it's like you do kind of feel that maybe your acting crew thinks you're like this, ultimate buttoned up person,
Yeah.
and then your church group thinks that you're some wacky something, and it's like, no, I'm neither. It's like just
Yeah.
there's a
Or
tension there,
both.
and
I'm a
both
little
of you guys
both.
won't understand it. So,
Yeah, and my fear though is not just the like buttoned up conservative thing. My fear is that whatever sins or lifestyles or that they're living, they know that I hate them because of it. And if we don't talk about Christ and love and righteousness and holiness and all that stuff, they'll never know how much I love them. Because that's a very scary um, topic or set of topics for most people. Um, is the who do you hate because you're a Christian?
well, and it's easy to be because I don't know. You talked about being a worship pastor, but I'm also like a quote unquote preacher sometimes. Like
Yeah.
I do speak in churches sometimes on the mission field or different things, and it's like I'm not. I try not to be a hypocrite and say something different in one place than another.
Yep.
But it is easy in the context of church to have a certain, I'll just use the word vibe. And then when you're like, I'll use the word maybe incarnational, when you're in a different circumstance,
Yep.
you might not say, and then you can be accused of being a hypocrite. Yeah, man, it's messy. It's messy.
It's
And
messy, but I think if your goal is to be the same person everywhere, Chad, I think you're in the exact right spot.
yeah,
Um,
um,
yeah, because then people can't they can't go to those conclusions. Like, well, he's the same everywhere he goes. I think it's really admirable.
let me ask you this. In your book, I like how you have it organized into empathy, fear, inspiration, and work ethic. Um, in your experience, yourself acting and teaching, which one of those things do you think is the biggest barrier for people with regard to quote unquote success in the industry? A lack of
Um,
empathy, too much fear. Anyway,
Success in the industry, that's interesting too.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
like to be a good actor does not conflate with being successful in the industry. Um,
Yeah, that's true.
there's so many great actors who aren't super famous or not even making money or have quit and done something else. Um, So I think success in the industry, I think that work ethic thing, like there's
Hmm.
nothing better than that. And a lot of actors don't know what the actual work is. They think the work is being in plays and being in movies and commercials. And that is actually the fruit of the work. Your work as an actor is to be seen. And I also think that that's your work as a Christian is to be seen. Um, and I don't want to confuse who's being seen. I think if you're being seen as a Christian, be please have Christ be seen. But you're not supposed to hide it under a bushel, right? And so as an actor, if you've got that work ethic and you know what your work week looks like, and you're not in a play, you're not in a musical, you're not in a movie or anything like that, and you're like Monday is my Monday and Thursdays, that's my look for work day. I'm going to be hitting the trades. I'm going to be hitting the Actors Access or whatever the website will be when this thing comes out. I'm going to hit all of the I call them audition hubs. Are That's my Mondays and Thursdays. And I'm going to spend an hour and a half probably on those things. Okay, I'm not going to spend all day because it doesn't take all day. And then after that, I'm going to go to the gym and work out, or I have an acting class that I'm going to go do, or I'm going to do something physical to get my body in the right shape. I'm going to read a new play today. I'm going to get a new play done every week. I'm also going to create something this week, and I have this amount of time set aside. So my work week is set out and I'm spending my time instead of waiting for time to pass until the agent calls. Um, by the way, when I'm looking for those works, I have an agent already. And then I will call that agent up and be like, hey, I found this thing. Could you please submit that for me? And my agent appreciates that. I will say my New York agent appreciated that. My agent here doesn't really do that. Um, but Phoenix is a very different place. Um, So my work ethic would be such. If I'm an actor, I'm going to spend 30, 40 hours a week um, working on my acting, even though I'm not acting right now. A good portion of the time is being seen. So I will be at a show, I will be at a class, I will be at some sort of function every week where someone from the industry is seeing me, either an actor or a producer or a director or a casting director. It doesn't have to be physical. I can write a letter to a casting director saying, "Hey, good news! I just got this audition at this other place. Just want to let you know that I'm still working. I'm still doing good things." I get a lot of my inspiration for little letters like that from a book by Brian O'Neill called The Business of Theater. It's a terrific book, and it's all about reaching out and when to reach out and who to be when you reach out and all that. Um, but that's the work ethic. And then when you get into rehearsal, I don't remember the last play I did where I wasn't memorized before the first day of rehearsal.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm ready to go. I've all my given circumstances work is done. All my objective work is done. My pre-tactic stuff is all done, and I'm completely memorized. And I'm not going to like lord it over anybody, but we're going to hit the ground running. And I just did the Lehman trilogy last year. It's a three-person thing. It's like 3.5 hours long.
Wow.
And it's all written in weird poetry. And so it was a hard thing to memorize, but we got there. And when I show up, the other two men who got into the show also memorized, ready to go right off the bat, because they all knew it was going to be really, really hard.
Hmm.
And man, men became fast friends with, we all became fast friends with each other because we all noticed, oh, you're in this 100%. Um, and the play I did previous to that was called The Book of Will, and I came in memorized, and my person I was playing off came in memorized. He was from out of town. The rest of the cast wasn't, and they just saw us playing on our first day of rehearsal. Everything just expanded and they were like, oh, we're got to get on this horse. These guys are ready to go. And it really put a fire under everybody in a pretty healthy way because there wasn't any like, hey, you guys, come on. It was like, oh, this is for real. So that type of work ethic gets you invited back places.
Mm. Oh, that's good.
Uh, so that's success in the industry. And I'm not going to take God out of the equation because I think he does place us places. I know he places us places. To be successful as an actor, I think the biggest one is the fear one. I
Mm.
think most of us are afraid to be wrong. We're afraid to be large. We're afraid of looking stupid. And so, as actors, we will go back to our reliable bag of tricks most of the time, rather than what the new role that we've had that's never been done by us before is asking.
Mm.
Um, I'm afraid to do that. I'm afraid to audition for this thing. I try to do something scary in my career whenever I go out. So I'm in a musical now. I gave up musicals in 2002, or four actually. And I'm going to go sing in front of people. And it's been scary. And it's been a wonderful sort of like lean on God the whole time to get me through every single performance. We're in performance now. It's been wonderful.
Mm. Well, that's awesome. That's so true. Um, Michael, as we wrap up, you end your book with this line: "Consider the cost before attempting to build this tower." You've kind of talked about it a little bit, um, but what would you say to somebody who's thinking about getting into the acting world and they're a Christian? Um, what is the cost that they should consider?
Um, the largest cost that I have encountered is the cost of my family has to pay.
Hmm.
And it's the cost of time. And a lot of my students, especially at the university I teach, are afraid they'll never be able to have a family because of how time consuming, especially theater is.
Yeah.
If you're in the television and commercial world, it's maybe a long day here or a couple long days there. But theater, it's 4 weeks of rehearsal and however long the run is. And if you do those back to back to back to back, and it's joyful and fun and wonderful, you get used to not being home, and so does your family. So the biggest cost I would say is to family, and to find a family and a spouse that will understand that cost and help defray it. Especially when the kids were little, my wife would show up at rehearsals at dinner breaks. Um, and then everybody at rehearsal knows Michael's married and happily so. Um, and the kids get to see me at my job. And and my wife really did a great job of saying, "Isn't this wonderful what your dad is doing?" So the kids were appreciative of it. It gets harder once they're older, and it's harder to get all the kids into the car to go down to the theater to do that thing. But they all know the cost right now. Um, Also, the cost is on the other side is I don't do shows back to back um, often. That's kind of a rule that my wife and I kind of came up with when we found out how hard that was on us. So there's a cost of work that I'm giving up to be with my family. Um, but bringing Karen into those decisions about shows and having her pray about it and me pray about it, it has been really great. But I think the biggest cost is to family. What I thought the cost was my soul.
Hmm.
I thought that I would have to change who I was or compromise what I believed to get ahead. And I really don't think, because I'm not famous or anything, I don't think I would be famous had I compromised. I think
Hmm.
I would be mad because I'd compromised and wasn't famous. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah. Total.
And I really think like, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but gives up his soul has been such a key like barometer for why am I making these decisions. And I've sold out my soul 3 times in my
Hmm.
career. And we talk about that in class. And none of those times, and it was for advancement, it was for uh what else? It was for advancement, it was for money. and it was for a little bit of fame.
Hmm.
And what I thought I was going to get in return for it was not what I got. And I don't even know if I did get what I wanted for it, if it would have satisfied me. I hope God would be good enough to say no, it wouldn't have satisfied me. Um, so yeah, I thought it was going to be my soul, but it wasn't. And that's what I try and tell my students too, is that it doesn't have to cost you that. You can be fully who God wants you to be and do this at the same time. In fact, I hope that you will. I hope this is a calling and not something you just want to do because it's fun for you. Um, when it's a calling, it's going to suck a little bit,
Hmm.
and you're still going to put the chicken suit on and go to work. So
Hmm. Michael, thank you so much for writing this book and spending time with me and sharing your wisdom. It's been great.
I really appreciate it. It's my favorite thing to talk about. So I apologize if I rambled too much, but yeah, it just warmed my heart when you first reached out. So I really thought seven people were going to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. And like you said, there's so much to talk about, and when you get actors together, it's dangerous. So there's so many rabbit trails we could go down. So maybe we could do this again sometime.
Oh, love it.
Thank you so much.
All right, be well.